Cincy Guy, and today we're going to be talking about what's going on around the AFC North because realistically, a lot of crazy things have been happening as far as, free agency and the draft coming up in this next month. So, we're just going to start off with free agency, starting off, of course, with the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals decided to let Trey Hendrickson walk, and that is a topic of conversation we will go through as the video goes on. But the Bengals decided to let Trey Hendrickson walk. They ultimately decided that he was going to be more expensive than what he had wanted, and in the long run, we'll see if it worked. The Bengals offered 3 years, around $90 million, and Trey Hendrickson declined. So they decided, we're not paying more. You can go wherever you want, and that's what he did. The Bengals also let Joseph Osai walk. He signed with the New York Jets, 3 years, $36 million. So Joseph Osai was kind of playing on a 1 year prove-it deal last season, and he was, I believe, if I remember correctly, he did lead the team in sacks, or was like second behind Trey Hendrickson. So there goes your two pass rushers, right? So now you're gonna need new guys to step up. You're gonna need Shamar Stewart to kind of have a breakout season this year. You're gonna need Myles Murphy to have a breakout season this year, and those guys like that. So the Bengals let Joseph Osai walk and Trey Hendrickson, your two top pass rushers. So now is a pass rusher kind of going to be a thing in free agency later during the offseason? Are they going to attack pass rusher in the draft? That is to be determined. I think the Bengals have a lot of belief in their younger core guys to do some things, to do big things later on in the season or in the future, like Myles Murphy, like Shamar Stewart. So I think that them letting Joseph Osai and Trey Hendrickson walk kind of shows a lot of faith and hope that they have in these younger guys. So, and then going back to free agency, the Bengals did make a couple of, I'm not going to call them big splashes, big signing splashes, but they did make some good necessary signings. The Bengals signed a safety, a much needed position, and they let Geno Stone walk. He signed with the Buffalo Bills, thank goodness. But the Bengals let Geno Stone walk, so he signed with the Buffalo Bills. And the Bengals have signed Brian Cook, former Chiefs safety, to a 3-year, $40.25 million contract. Brian Cook is originally from Cincinnati, out of college from Cincinnati, and was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. And Brian Cook is really great. It's something the Bengals missed out on so much last year, and that was tackling. The Bengals were horrible at tackling other defenders or other players. And hopefully Brian Cook kind of brings whatever he learned and built in Kansas City into Cincinnati. And so that tackling kind of spreads out everywhere, so it's not an issue next season. And the Bengals also signed Super Bowl champion, former Seattle Seahawk Boy Mafe, to a 3-year, $60 million contract. That is probably out of the signings that we've had so far, that is probably my favorite signing, just because I do believe the Bengals pass rush was completely absent last year without Trey Hendrickson. And without Trey Hendrickson these past couple of years, there really has been no pass rush. So hopefully that Boy Mafe does bring a different level to this pass rush, a much needed level at that. So the Bengals do expect him, per multiple reports, to kind of break out the way Trey Hendrickson did. That's why it's such a kind of a big contract. It's 3 years, $60 million. So they do expect him to kind of have a breakout as far as, sacks produced in the season. And I do believe he can do that because he has done it before. And so it'll be interesting to see what he does this season. That is probably my favorite pickup of the offseason. And then the Bengals signed defensive tackle Jonathan Allen. So he's on the older side, but it is a two-year contract that can be up to $28 million. And many people are saying it could be an overpay, and they're right, it could be. But again, the Bengals defensive line is something that has struggled over the years, so you can't get mad at them for going and trying to fix that, right? That has been a need in the offseason multiple years at this point, and so you can't go get mad at them for trying to fix what the need has been, what the issue has been. Probably Jonathan Allen and Boy Mafe will be probably my two favorite signings of this offseason so far. I do love the Brian Cook signing. I think that is a perfect, and I think Brian Cook was the best safety in the free agent market. So, and then kind of just not a really an interesting signing, just a kind of a. The Bengals signed quarterback Josh Johnson, and you're going to start thinking about Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco's taking his time on what he was deciding on what to do. He has come out and said multiple times that he wants to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, and he believes that he proved that he can be a starting quarterback in the NFL when he came in and stepped in for Joe Burrow and Jake Browning after Joe Burrow went down with that turf toe injury, and Jake Browning didn't really pan out the way the Bengals had hoped. So they went and traded for Joe Flacco, and he did a decent job to keep the Bengals in the games. But again, that defense really was an issue. It has been for a couple of years now. So they're kind of just really seeing what Joe Flacco wants to do. He's testing the market, wants to start in the NFL, but if the opportunity is not there, he is completely open to signing back with Cincinnati. So now we're going to talk about the big thing here is the Trey Hendrickson has signed with the Baltimore Ravens. And so that is the big highlight of the AFC North in free agency, really. So Trey Hendrickson signed with the Baltimore Ravens, a move that wasn't immediate. And if you know what I'm talking about, well, let's just break down into it. The Ravens traded for Max Crosby, a defensive end for the Las Vegas Raiders. The Ravens traded for Max Crosby for 2 first-round picks. And then literally a couple of days later, the Ravens decide to back out of the Crosby trade. Why? Because Max Crosby failed his physical, so that was that. So then all the attention turns to Trey Hendrickson. And guess what happened the next day? Trey Hendrickson signed a 4-year, $112 million contract for the Baltimore Ravens, and I believe that is including bonuses and stuff, but Trey Hendrickson signed for less than what the Bengals offered. And so after all that time, after all that drama, after all of that, etc., he signs for less than what the Bengals offered. Is that frustrating? Yes, because the Bengals would have loved to have Trey Hendrickson on their team for these next couple of years. He has led the league in sacks he led the league in sacks the year before that and had 17 2 years before that. So he had a combination of whatever 17 and 17 and a half is, and he was at the top of the NFL for sacks, and he's top 5 for sacks over the past 3, 4, 5 years, I think. So, and the Ravens have faced heavy criticism for it, and I think rightfully so. That is just not something that you do. But the Ravens backed out of the Max Crosby trade, and now Trey Hendrickson is a Baltimore Raven, so he stays in the AFC North. And as a Bengals fan and other fans around the AFC North, I think I can speak for all of them. That is very frustrating because the AFC North is already stacked with pass rushers. You have Myles Garrett, who just broke the sack record in the season last year, and TJ Watt's always a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Just seems, and he's such a great disruptor of the quarterback, disruptor at the line. So, and then Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals had Trey Hendrickson, and now he goes from Cincinnati over to a rival, the Baltimore Ravens. So the Bengals will start seeing him for twice a year now from here on out. So the Bengals defensive line is really a joke compared to the rest of the AFC North. You know what I mean? They don't have a big name guy like the Ravens do with Trey Hendrickson. They don't have a big name guy like the Browns do with Myles Garrett. They don't have a big name guy like the Steelers do with TJ Watt. And really, the AFC North has been kind of boring as far as free agency goes. Nobody has really made a big splash besides the Baltimore Ravens in free agency. I'm not going to sit here and say any team's gotten better or any team's gotten worse. The Ravens lost a lot of key parts. The Browns are the Browns, and the Steelers don't know what they're doing at quarterback. Is Aaron Rodgers gonna retire, or is he gonna resign? Are they gonna move forward with Will Howard? That is a question that everybody's been asking. So the AFC North, as far as free agency goes, has been dramatic, mainly just on the Ravens side, but everything else has been kind of underwhelming. The Bengals' free agency has been underwhelming. They came out multiple times and said that they're going to attack free agency. They did the first couple of days. They signed Boy Mafe. They signed Brian Cook. But it's been dead really ever since. The only other signing that they've had was signing Jonathan Allen. So the Bengals better get the draft right and develop these key players, something that they have not been good at, not even close as terms in drafting or developing young players. So this year is big. This is a make or break year for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I feel like I've been saying that for so long, but this year has more pressure to it. Burrow has come out multiple times, said he's frustrated. He has lost his fun for football. Just because of how much they lose, it doesn't make it fun. And so he's also, always rehabbing, and so on and so forth. So if if the struggles do continue to grow, then all of a sudden the face of your franchise doesn't even want to be in Cincinnati anymore. So that is an issue, that is a problem that hopefully does not come. Hopefully the Bengals can maybe continue to attack free agency as the offseason goes along and get the draft correct. And then next month, the NFL schedule, I believe it's next month or the month after that, the NFL schedule comes out. And then just like that, it's time for OTAs again. So that's that. Trey Henderson is a Baltimore Raven. Is it a stab in the back as a Bengals fan? Absolutely. Absolutely. Literally, if he were to leave, I wouldn't have been as frustrated if, say, he went to Dallas. Like, if he went to Dallas, good for him. He's out of the AFC even. He's not in the AFC North. But not only did he sign in the AFC, he signed in the AFC North with a rival who just traded for Max Crosby, backed out of the Max Crosby trade and went and signed him. And reports have been saying that the Ravens planned on pairing Max Crosby and Trey Henderson together. So that would have been very interesting. But that's gonna be the video here. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. We went over the Trey Henderson trade, the Max Crosby, the Max Crosby fallout and everything, and we talked about kind of the recap for the Bengals free agency because it doesn't seem like they're gonna do much else for this point in time. So make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you for watching. This is Cincy Guy.